Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a point in life when you just can't take it anymore. You've smiled through the pain, told yourself it's fine when it wasn't, and made excuses for things you knew were breaking you. But deep down, you feel it, that holy frustration, that deep stirring in your spirit that says, I cannot live like this one more day. Change doesn't usually come when we're comfortable. It comes when we're tired of living beneath what we know is possible, tired of letting fear be the boss, tired of giving our joy away for free. Sometimes, God allows us to get so uncomfortable that we can't ignore it anymore. We think we're just fed up, but really, He's waking us up. That disgust you feel toward the way things have been, that's not weakness, it's the beginning of strength. It's the fuel that will push you to do what you've been putting off for years. You won't get serious about your health until you're disgusted with feeling sick. You won't fix that relationship until you're disgusted with the distance. You won't step into your calling until you're disgusted with the excuses. We can pray for change, but if we're still making peace with what's holding us back, nothing will happen. Change requires a decision, a deep, non-negotiable, I'm done with this decision. And when that decision is made, it's like a chain breaks. The temptation will still come, the doubts will still whisper, but something inside of you will be different. You'll have crossed a line in your heart, and there's no going back. You may have to cry through it, fight through it, and wrestle through it, but you'll also feel alive in a way you haven't felt in years. Because disgust, when surrendered to God, becomes determination. And determination, fueled by faith, will carry you farther than talent, luck, or even opportunity ever could. So if you're at that point today, don't run from it. Don't bury it under another distraction. Look at your life, feel that holy dissatisfaction, and say it out loud, enough is enough. Because nothing changes until you're disgusted, and when you are, everything can change. That feeling you get when you know you can't go on like this anymore, that deep ache in your soul that whispers, something has to change, is often the very starting point of transformation. It's not just a random emotion. It's not just a bad day or a moment of frustration. It's a holy dissatisfaction. It's as if God Himself is allowing you to see your situation clearly, without all the excuses, without all the pretending, without the mask you've been wearing to convince yourself everything is fine. And when you see the truth for what it is, you realize you simply can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We often think change starts with motivation, inspiration, or someone else pushing us forward. But most of the time, it begins inside of us with an inner shift, a recognition that we've been tolerating something that we know is not God's best for us. Maybe it's a habit that's been slowly stealing your peace. Maybe it's a relationship that drains you more than it blesses you. Or maybe it's a way of thinking that has kept you small and afraid. Holy dissatisfaction is that moment when you stop making peace with those things. You stop giving them room in your life. You stop pretending they're not hurting you. Sometimes this dissatisfaction feels uncomfortable, even painful. You might start to notice little things that used to slide by without bothering you. The friend who always talks down to you suddenly makes your heart feel heavy. The job that once felt secure now feels suffocating. The choices you've been making in your daily routine, the ones you've justified 1,000 times, suddenly seem unacceptable. And you can't explain it to everyone else, because they might not see what you see. But you know something inside of you has shifted. This is where God's work in us often begins. He will let us feel that restlessness so we can stop settling. Because here's the truth, you can't change what you still accept. As long as you are comfortable enough, you will keep repeating the same patterns, but holy dissatisfaction shakes you awake. It pushes you to ask hard questions. Why am I still here? Why am I allowing this? Why am I choosing this again? Those questions are uncomfortable, but they are also a sign that you're ready for a breakthrough. Think about the times in your life when you actually made real progress. Chances are, it wasn't because someone else gave you a pep talk. It was because you were truly done with the way things were. Maybe you finally got serious about your health, because you were tired of feeling exhausted every day. Maybe you set boundaries with someone because you couldn't handle the constant disrespect anymore. Maybe you stepped into a dream you'd been ignoring because you were disgusted with the regret of doing nothing. Every one of those moments began with that inner discomfort, the holy dissatisfaction that says, no more. But here's the thing, holy dissatisfaction isn't just about being unhappy. It's not about complaining or wishing life were different while doing nothing to change it. It's a God-given awareness paired with a readiness to act. It's when your heart is saying, I can't stay here, and your spirit is saying, God, show me the way forward. This kind of dissatisfaction pulls you towards something greater, something higher, something better than where you've been. It's important to remember that not everyone will understand this feeling. Some people might think you're being dramatic or impatient. Others might even try to talk you out of it, saying, it's not so bad, or just be grateful for what you have. Gratitude is important, yes, but it should never be an excuse for settling in a place God is calling you out of. Holy dissatisfaction is not ingratitude, it's alignment with God's truth about your life. It's recognizing that while you're thankful for where you are, you know deep down that there's more, and you're ready to walk toward it. You might even resist the feeling at first. It's easier to numb it with distractions bin. Watching shows, scrolling endlessly on your phone, or filling your schedule so full that you never have to sit alone with your thoughts. But you can't outrun holy dissatisfaction. It will keep coming back like a gentle but persistent nudge from God until you face it. And when you do face it, everything starts to look different. You'll notice opportunities you missed before. You'll feel a surge of courage that you didn't have when you were still okay with the old ways. That dissatisfaction actually creates the hunger for change. It drives you to pray differently, to think differently, and to take steps you wouldn't have taken before. It's the inner shift that has to happen before the outer change can ever last. The truth is, God often uses this stage to prepare us. If He changed our circumstances while we were still comfortable in them, we might slip right back into the same patterns. But when we've reached the point of holy dissatisfaction, we're ready to let go of what's been holding us back. We're willing to walk away from the familiar, even when it's scary. We're willing to risk discomfort in order to find freedom. That's why it's such a powerful moment, because it's the turning point. It's the place where faith can actually take root and grow. You might not have all the answers yet, and you might not know exactly what's next, but you know this much: you can't go back. You can't unsee the truth you've seen. You can't unknow what you now know, and that knowing, that deep, holy dissatisfaction, is the very thing that will set you on the path to lasting transformation. Comfort can be one of the most dangerous places to live in. It feels safe, predictable, and easy. You don't have to face your fears when you're comfortable. You don't have to take risks, stretch your faith, or challenge yourself. You can just go through the motions, repeating the same patterns day after day. And because nothing is drastically wrong, you convince yourself that nothing needs to change. But here's the truth: comfort can be a silent trap. It slowly lulls you into settling for less than what God has for you, and you don't even realize how stuck you've become. Real transformation rarely happens when everything is going smoothly. Think about it when life feels good, when your routines are working, when nothing is rocking the boat. You're not likely to make drastic changes. Why would you? It's only when the walls start closing in, when the things that used to satisfy you no longer do, that you start asking, is this all there is? Discomfort is the alarm clock that wakes you up. It's the signal that you've been living too small, thinking too safe, or accepting too little. God sometimes allows us to be uncomfortable because He knows we wouldn't move otherwise. We might pray for growth, but growth always requires stretching, and stretching is uncomfortable. You can't strengthen a muscle without putting it under resistance. The same is true for your faith, your character, your relationships, and your dreams. You can't step into your purpose without stepping out of what's familiar. And stepping out feels risky, but it's also where the miracles happen. The problem is, comfort whispers lies to you. It says, "You're fine here. Don't rock the boat. Don't make a scene. Don't take a risk." It keeps you looking at the short-term ease instead of the long-term reward. It tells you that staying the same is safer than trying and failing. But what it doesn't tell you is that staying the same comes with its own cost. Over time, you lose your spark. You start to feel restless, but you suppress it. You stop dreaming as big as you used to. You shrink your vision to fit your current reality, instead of expanding your reality to match your God-given vision. Discomfort, on the other hand, refuses to let you stay in that place. It's like a holy irritation. It keeps poking at you until you take action. Maybe it's the constant frustration you feel in a job that doesn't align with your gifts. Maybe it's the ache you feel every time you see someone else living out what you've been too afraid to try. Maybe it's the nagging conviction that your habits are robbing you of the life you want. That irritation is not there to torment you, it's there to propel you. When you begin to feel that discomfort, it's easy to think something is wrong. And in a way, it is something is wrong with staying where you are when God is calling you forward. But instead of running from that feeling, you need to lean into it. Discomfort is a teacher. It shows you what's not working. It points out the areas that need attention. It refuses to let you hide from the truth. You'll notice that many of the greatest changes in life happen after a season of discomfort. Someone who never cared about their health before suddenly becomes committed after getting tired of feeling exhausted and sick. A person who stayed in a toxic relationship for years finally walks away after one moment of unbearable disrespect. An individual who always dreamed of starting a business finally launches after realizing they can't stand the thought of working another year in the wrong career. Those turning points were born in discomfort. The danger is that we can numb that discomfort instead of acting on it. We fill our time with noise TV, social media, constant busyness, anything to avoid sitting alone with the feeling that things are not okay. But the more we avoid it, the longer we stay stuck. Change requires that we listen to the discomfort, even when it's unpleasant. Because discomfort is like a compass, it's pointing you toward the areas where God wants to work. There's another reason discomfort is so powerful. It pushes you to rely on God in a deeper way. When you're comfortable, you can coast. You can rely on your own strength, your own plans, your own logic. But when you're uncomfortable, you realize you don't have all the answers. You start seeking Him more earnestly. You pray more honestly. You stop saying shallow prayers like, "Bless my day," and start saying raw prayers like, "God, I need you. I can't do this without you." That's where intimacy with Him grows, in the stretching, not in the settling. It's also worth noting that discomfort forces you to grow courage. You can't be brave without something to be brave against. If everything was easy, you wouldn't need courage. But discomfort demands it. It calls you to take a step even when you're trembling. It calls you to believe God's promises even when you can't see how they'll come to pass. Every time you choose to step into discomfort for the sake of growth, your faith muscles get stronger. The truth is, there's a difference between the discomfort that comes from being in the wrong place and the discomfort that comes from stepping into the right one. The first drains you, the second develops you. You have to discern which one you're feeling. If you're uncomfortable because you're living outside of God's will, that's a sign to repent and realign. If you're uncomfortable because you're growing, that's a sign to press forward and trust Him. Either way, that discomfort is a tool in His hands to move you from where you are to where you're meant to be. Comfort may feel good in the moment, but it can never produce the kind of life you're longing for. Discomfort is the price of transformation, and it's worth every moment of the stretching. Because on the other side of it, you'll find not only change, but also the strength, faith, and joy that comfort could never give you. That deep frustration you feel, the one you try to shake off, but it keeps coming back, might actually be a signal from God. We often think it's just moodiness, bad luck, or a rough season. But there are moments when that heaviness in your spirit is more than just emotion. It's a divine nudge saying, "This is not where you're meant to stay." Disgust in this sense is not the petty kind we feel towards small inconveniences. It's the soul-level recognition that something in our life is out of order. It could be a habit, a relationship, a mindset, or even a way of living that's keeping us from the fullness of what God has prepared for us. It's not easy to see it that way, though. We're quick to label discomfort and disgust as purely negative emotions. But the truth is, they can serve as catalysts for growth. If everything in your life always felt perfectly fine, you would never have the motivation to step out of what's familiar. That inner frustration is often God's way of drawing your attention to what needs to change. It's like the warning lights on a car dashboard. You can ignore them for a while, but sooner or later, you'll have to deal with what's going on under the hood. This kind of divine signal shows up in different ways for different people. For some, it's a restlessness that won't go away no matter how much they try to distract themselves. For others, it's the sudden awareness that a certain relationship, job, or environment is no longer healthy. Sometimes it's even a growing dissatisfaction with yourself, not in a condemning way, but in the sense that you know you're capable of more than what you've been giving. These are not random feelings. They're invitations to deeper awareness and intentional action. The danger is that we often try to silence these signals instead of listening to them. We tell ourselves, "It's not that bad," or "other people have it worse." And while gratitude is important, using it as a shield to avoid change keeps us trapped. Gratitude should inspire us to steward our lives well, not keep us in places that drain us. When God puts His finger on an area of our life, and we feel that holy discomfort, ignoring it only delays the freedom He wants to bring. Think about the stories of transformation. We've all heard the person who finally overcame an addiction, the woman who broke free from a toxic relationship, the man who left an unfulfilling career to follow his calling. Almost every one of those journeys began with a moment of profound disgust. They reached a point where they couldn't stand the idea of spending one more day in the same situation. That disgust became the turning point. Without it, they might still be stuck. What's powerful about this type of disgust is that it comes with clarity. It's not just "I don't like this." It's "This is wrong for me. This is not who I'm meant to be. This is not the life I'm supposed to live." That kind of clarity cuts through confusion. It forces you to see the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It might mean admitting that you've been making excuses, tolerating mistreatment, or neglecting the gifts God has placed inside you. Those realizations sting, but they are also freeing because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Sometimes this divine signal shows up after years of ignoring smaller warnings. God is patient, but He loves us too much to leave us in places that harm us. So He allows the feeling to intensify until we pay attention. The longer we resist, the stronger it gets. Eventually, the discomfort outweighs the fear of change, and that's when we're finally willing to take a step forward. It's also worth noting that this kind of disgust is often accompanied by conviction. You sense not only that something needs to change, but that you have a responsibility to change it. It's not about blaming others or waiting for circumstances to improve. It's about recognizing that you have choices to make. God will guide you, but He won't force you to move. That holy dissatisfaction is His way of saying, "I've put more in you than this. Let's go to the next level." One of the hardest parts about responding to this divine signal is that it can lead you into uncharted territory. When you've lived a certain way for a long time, even if it's unhealthy, it becomes familiar. And familiarity feels safe, even when it's harmful. That's why some people would rather stay in a known pain than step into an unknown future. But the very fact that you feel that inner disgust is proof that God is preparing you for something better. The truth is, God doesn't create you to live stuck. He doesn't design you to tolerate what steals your joy, drains your purpose, or keeps you bound. So when you feel that deep frustration, you have two choices. You can numb it and stay where you are, or you can let it be the sign that pushes you into change. If you choose the second option, you'll find that what once felt like an unbearable burden becomes the very thing that set you free. That's why it's so important not to dismiss these feelings as just being in a bad mood or going through a phase. Sometimes they're the most important messages you'll ever receive. They're the Spirit's way of getting your attention, preparing your heart, and equipping you to move into the next season of your life. And if you're willing to listen, that disgust, that holy, uncomfortable, unavoidable feeling, could be the first step toward the life you've been praying for all along. There comes a moment when you stop negotiating with what's been holding you back. You stop making deals with fear, excuses, and comfort. That's the power of a real decision. It breaks chains. A decision isn't just a passing thought or a burst of motivation. It's a deep, unwavering choice that says, I'm not living like this anymore. It's not about trying or seeing how it goes. It's about cutting off every escape route back to the old way of living. Once that line is drawn in your heart, something changes inside you. You're no longer playing both sides. You've committed to a new path. The truth is, most of us know what needs to change long before we actually change it. We tell ourselves we're waiting for the right time, for better conditions, for the fear to go away, but that day never comes. The turning point is never about perfect timing. It's about making a choice and sticking to it. Until you make that non-negotiable decision, life will give you endless reasons to stay the same. You'll always find another excuse, another delay, another valid reason to wait. A firm decision has a way of simplifying your life. When you haven't fully decided, your mind is constantly debating, weighing options, wondering if you should or shouldn't. It's exhausting. But when you've decided, there's no more back and forth. The question isn't should I anymore, it's how will I. That shift alone frees up so much mental energy. You're no longer stuck in indecision. You're moving forward. Making a true decision often requires courage, because it means burning the bridge to the past. It means closing the door on something that was familiar, even if it wasn't healthy. It means risking discomfort for the sake of growth. And there's always a moment of fear that comes with that fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of what others will think. But fear loses its grip when your decision is bigger than your fear. The moment you say, I'm done, and you truly mean it, your mindset begins to change. You start to see options you couldn't see before because you're no longer distracted by the possibility of staying where you are. Your focus shifts. Your determination sharpens. That's why so many people who make a solid decision often experience a sudden burst of momentum, not because their circumstances changed overnight, but because their heart did. It's important to realize that decisions are not made with feelings alone. You might not feel ready. You might not feel strong. You might not even feel like doing it. But a decision made in faith is more powerful than a decision made in feelings. Feelings change from day to day, but a decision anchored in conviction holds steady even when emotions waver. That's why people who rely only on motivation often quit. Motivation fades, but commitment remains. When you make that kind of decision, your actions start lining up with it. You don't just talk about change, you take steps toward it. You stop giving time and energy to things that pull you backward. You adjust your routines, your environment, and even your relationships if necessary. Because a real decision doesn't just live in your mind, it shows up in your behavior. There's also something spiritual that happens when you fully decide. God meets you at the point of commitment. When your heart is resolute, doors begin to open that were closed before. Opportunities appear, resources show up, and strength rises within you. It's not that God wasn't willing before, it's that your divided heart was holding you back. A firm decision removes that division. But be prepared the moment you decide, resistance often shows up. Life might throw challenges at you to test whether you really mean it. Old habits might try to sneak back in. People might question your choice. That's why it's crucial to remember that a decision is not a one-time burst of willpower. It's a daily stand. Every day, you reinforce it by refusing to go back, no matter how tempting it is. Some people never experience the freedom they long for simply because they never make that clear, unshakable choice. They sort of want change, but they keep a back door open just in case. The problem is, as long as that back door exists, you'll use it when things get hard. That's why lasting change requires shutting the door completely. It's not easy, but it's worth it, because that's the only way to break the cycle for good. In the end, the power of decision is that it shifts your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying to change and start seeing yourself as someone who has changed. That difference in self-image influences every choice you make from that point forward. You begin to live in alignment with your decision, and over time, your entire life begins to reflect it. When you reach that point, when you've made the choice, and there's no turning back, it's like the chains fall off. You're not being pulled in two directions anymore. You're not stuck wondering what if, or should I. You're walking in a clear direction, and with every step, the weight of indecision disappears. That's why a true, non-negotiable decision doesn't just change your actions, it changes your entire life. When frustration is surrendered to God, it no longer stays as frustration, it becomes determination. That's the shift that makes all the difference. On your own, disgust can easily turn into bitterness, self-pity, or hopelessness. But when you take that same feeling and lay it before Him, it transforms into a driving force that propels you forward. It stops being a weight that drags you down and starts being the wind that pushes you ahead. This is why two people can face the same level of dissatisfaction, yet one stays stuck while the other breaks free. The difference is where they take that frustration. When you bring it to God, you're admitting, I can't fix this on my own, but I refuse to live like this any longer. That's a powerful position because it combines humility with resolve. You're not just venting your feelings, you're inviting His strength into your struggle. You're asking for His wisdom, His timing, and His direction. And when you do that, He begins to channel that holy dissatisfaction into a plan, into steps, into courage that you didn't even realize you had. Faith takes the energy of frustration and gives it a purpose. Without faith, frustration often leads to rash decisions, burnout, or giving up entirely. But with faith, that same energy is harnessed in a way that fuels steady, intentional progress. Instead of running from pain, you start using it as motivation. You pray differently, not just asking God to make the problem go away, but asking Him to show you how to rise above it. That's the kind of prayer He loves to answer, because it's rooted in growth and trust, not just comfort. This transformation doesn't always happen instantly. Sometimes, the process of turning disgust into determination happens in small steps. You might start by confronting one habit, making one change, or taking one step you've been afraid to take. As you do, you'll notice something powerful. Every little act of obedience strengthens your resolve. What felt impossible yesterday starts to feel doable today, and every time you act in faith, your determination grows. It's also important to recognize that faith-fueled determination isn't just about stubbornness. It's not about pushing forward blindly without considering God's leading. True determination stays flexible to His guidance. It's the difference between I'm going to make this happen no matter what, and I'm going to keep moving forward until God shows me the next step. One is self-reliance, the other is God-reliance, and the latter will always take you further than your own strength ever could. When you allow faith to shape your determination, your mindset changes. You stop focusing on how hard it is and start focusing on how faithful God is. You stop rehearsing all the reasons it might fail and start reminding yourself of all the reasons it will succeed with Him on your side. That shift in focus is huge, because your thoughts feed your actions. If you believe God is guiding you, you'll keep moving even when the path feels uncertain. Another thing that happens when frustration becomes faith-driven determination is that you begin to see obstacles differently. What used to intimidate you now becomes a challenge you're ready to face. You stop expecting the road to be smooth and start preparing for the bumps, not in a pessimistic way, but in a realistic, faith-filled way. You know there will be resistance, but you also know that resistance builds strength. This kind of determination also has endurance. It's not just a burst of energy that fades after a week. Because it's rooted in faith, it's sustained by something bigger than your willpower. Even when you feel tired or discouraged, there's a deeper reason to keep going. You remember the conviction that started it all. You remember the moment you told God, "Enough is enough," and that memory reignites your drive. Faith-fueled determination is contagious too. When people around you see you pressing forward despite challenges, it inspires them. They notice that your energy isn't coming from anger or desperation, but from a deep well of belief that God is doing something. It's not just about what you're achieving, it's about the example you're setting. Your perseverance can become the encouragement someone else needs to start their own journey of change. It's worth mentioning that this kind of determination doesn't mean you won't have moments of doubt or weakness. You will. The difference is that you won't let those moments stop you. You might pause, you might cry, you might even feel like giving up for a day, but then you'll get back up. Because once faith has taken hold of your frustration, you can't stay down for long. There's too much inside you pushing you to move forward. God honors that kind of resolve. In Scripture, we see countless examples of people who faced impossible situations, but kept going because they believed. They didn't wait until every problem was solved to move. They stepped forward in the middle of uncertainty, and as they moved, God made a way. That's what happens when faith and determination work together. You take a step, and He meets you there. When frustration is left unchecked, it can drain you, but when it's surrendered, it fuels you. The same fire that once burned you out can burn away what's holding you back. And once you've experienced that shift, you understand that frustration is not your enemy, it's a signal that you're ready for more. A tool God can use to strengthen your spirit, and the starting point of a determination that will carry you farther than you ever thought you could go. There's a certain power in speaking things out loud. Words have weight. They carry life or death, hope or defeat, courage or fear. When you reach the point where you're ready to change, something shifts the moment you open your mouth and declare, "Enough is enough." Until then, your decision might just be a thought, an idea rolling around in your mind. But when you speak it, it becomes real not just to you, but to the spiritual atmosphere around you. You're not just thinking about change anymore. You're declaring it, committing to it, and giving it a voice that you can't easily take back. That declaration is more than a sentence, it's a line in the sand. It's you telling yourself, telling the enemy, and even telling God, "I'm done tolerating what's been holding me back." It's a shift from passively wishing for change to actively choosing it. Words have a way of reinforcing what's in your heart. Every time you say, "Enough is enough," you're reminding yourself that you are not going back. You're aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions with a single, powerful truth. The old way of living is over. When you speak it out, you also hold yourself accountable. Silent intentions are easy to ignore, but spoken declarations echo in your mind. They come back to you when you're tempted to give in. They remind you of the moment you stood up and decided to fight for more. That's why so many breakthroughs in life start with someone saying the words out loud, even if they say them alone in a room, tears streaming down their face. It's not about who hears it. It's about you hearing it, your spirit hearing it, and the world around you hearing it. Declaring enough is enough also changes your posture. There's a difference between someone hoping for change and someone determined to change. You can see it in the way they walk, talk, and make decisions. When you make that declaration, you stand taller, you look challenges in the eye, and you refuse to be pushed around by the same circumstances that used to control you. It's not that the obstacles disappear, but your approach to them changes. You're no longer reacting to life. You're taking charge of it. It's important to remember that declaring enough is not a magic spell that makes all your problems vanish overnight. It's the beginning of a process, not the end of it. Speaking it is powerful, but it must be followed by consistent action. Your words set the tone, but your steps seal the deal. And the beautiful thing is, once you've spoken it with conviction, those steps start to feel more possible. You've told yourself the truth, and now you're starting to live in alignment with it. Sometimes saying it out loud is the hardest part. There's a vulnerability in admitting, even to yourself, that you've been living beneath your potential. It takes humility to face the fact that you've stayed in places you shouldn't have, made excuses you knew were weak, or ignored opportunities you should have taken. But humility is the soil where transformation grows. And declaring enough is like planting the first seed. When you speak it with faith, your words also become a prayer. Even if you don't say, "Lord, help me," the very act of declaring your readiness for change invites God into the process. He hears you, He sees your resolve, and He begins to strengthen you for the journey ahead. Your declaration is like knocking on a door, and Scripture promises that when you knock, it will be opened. Another reason verbal declaration is so powerful is that it drowns out the lies that have been playing in your head for too long. The enemy loves to whisper things like "you'll never change," "it's too late," or "you're not strong enough." Those lies grow when you stay silent, but they lose their grip when you open your mouth and speak the opposite. Your voice becomes a weapon. The more you declare truth over your life, the less room there is for lies to take root. You might have to say it more than once. In fact, you probably will. Change is rarely a one-time decision. It's a series of choices made day after day. Every time you feel the pull to go back to old habits or old mindsets, you can speak those same words again. Enough is enough. And each time you say them, you reinforce your new reality. You're not who you were when you first made the declaration. You're growing, getting stronger, becoming more of who you were created to be. And don't underestimate the ripple effect your declaration can have on others. When people hear you speak with conviction, it inspires them. They might not say it out loud right away, but deep down they start thinking, if they can draw a line in the sand, maybe I can too. Courage is contagious, and sometimes your voice gives someone else the permission they've been waiting for to find their own.